Hello soulmate, you're welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this tutorial, I'm going to be learning how to make this stylish asymmetric overbust corset top. If this is your first time of seeing my channel, thank you for stopping by. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for watching. So if this tutorial is one that you're interested in, please join me while we get started. Okay, on your pattern paper, which should be on a fold, you draw your starting line, draw your shoulder to bust, shoulder to underbust, shoulder to waist, shoulder to hip, your shoulder to chest line as well. And also you need to have your corset length. So my corset length is just going to be 5 inches below my waistline, which I'm marking, and I'm going to draw a straight line and label it. Okay, so after marking all these lines and labeling it, I'm going to come to the top area and mark my shoulder measurement divided by 2. Mine is 7, which is 14 inches divided by 2. I came down by 1 inch and I mark my armhole depth, which is my distance from that 1 inch to the chest line. And to get that, it's my bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5. So now I'm also marking my neck width of 3 inches width and 3 inches depth, and I'm connecting it with a curve like this. So after that, I'm just going to connect it to that 1 inch I came down from the shoulder area for my shoulder slope. Then I'm taking the midpoint of that armhole depth, coming in by 0.5 at that midpoint. Then I mark my bust measurement divided by 4 on my chest line. Then I'm going to use my armhole curve to connect these 3 points together. The shoulder area, 0.5 inch I came in from the center, and then the bust measurement divided by 4 I marked on the chest line. That was going to give me my armhole curve. Okay, so now I'm going to mark my bust span, which is the nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. Mine is 7, divided by 2 is 3.5, so I marked it from the chest line down to the hip line. So after doing this, I'm just going to come to the underbust line and mark 1 inch on both sides from that line. On the hip area, I just marked 2 inches from that line towards the center front. Okay, so from the first 1 inch of the underbust towards the center front, I'll connect it to that 2 inches. Then the second 1 inch towards the side, I connect it to meet the bust span line. Okay, I'm trying to get a slanted dart. So I'm going to use my curve to connect the underbust to meet the bust area like this, and I'm going to do it on the both sides like I'm doing right now. Okay, so after this, I'm just gonna come to the chest line and mark my body measurement, bust measurement divided by 4, mark it and add my allowance, which I'm using 1 inch. Underbust, mark the underbust measurement divided by 4, take the dart allowance there, which is 2 inches, add it and add your sewing allowance, which is 1 inch I'm using. For the waist, do the same thing, waist measurement divided by 4, add the waist dart allowance there and the seam allowance. Then for the hip, your hip measurement divided by 4, add that 2 inch allowance and add 1 inch for seam allowance. So after that, I just went ahead to connect them together. Okay, so before I make this visible, I'm going to be doing some that intake, which I'm going to be adding later, so I'm not going to use my marker first. So for the waist area, I took the measurement I have from that line to the side, and I measure the midpoint. Okay, I just divided it by 2 and mark the midpoint at that area, so I mark 0.5 inch on both sides. So after doing that, I took the exact measurement I have from that line to the midpoint where I marked, and I marked that same measurement on the underbust, the hip line as well. So I connected them together because that line is slanted, it's not straight. Okay, so that's why I took the exact measurement, so that it can give me a straight line, a straight slanted line actually. So I connected them together and I connected it to the chest line. Then from the 0.5 inch I came in from the waist area on both sides, I went ahead to connect them together like this for me to get a dart there. So that intake, I went ahead to add it at the waist side, which is 1 inch. I added what I have at the underbust area as well, and then I'm just going to connect them together. Also went ahead to add this little allowance I had towards the corset length, and I just went ahead to connect them together like this. Okay, so I'll just use my marker now to make them very visible for us. So you don't have to mind the shape that is there, just go ahead and connect them together. Okay, make sure you use the exact measurements that you're supposed to use, don't mind the shape. So I'm just indicating the areas that have the dart where I'll be cutting off. Then after that, I'm going to take my bust dart I'm going to come down from the bust line by 1.5 and connect it to the nipple to nipple area. This is the difference between my shoulder to waist in the front, shoulder to waist at the back. Shoulder to waist in the front, I'm using 16 inches, and my shoulder to waist at the back is 14.5. Please take note that the shoulder to waist measurement for the front is different from that of the back. Okay, so now after that, I came from the chest line above by 1.5 inches and I drew a straight line across. Please guys, I want you to take note that this measurement is for someone that is not quite busty. If you are someone that is on a plus size that is busty, for your dart intake, instead of using 1 inch on both sides, you can just use 1.25 on both sides. Okay, so I measured the shoulder measurements there into 2, and I connected the midpoint to meet the bust fan line on the bust area. Okay, so from that over bust line I drew earlier, I marked 0.75 on both sides, and I connected them together like this to meet that bust line. Okay, I hope you understand what I'm doing. So I'm just trying to get the curve at that point. I'm going to come down from the armhole area by 0.5 inch. Okay, then I'm going to use my the curve there to connect that area to that 0.5 inch. Okay, so this is me just trying to ensure that the dart intake I have on that area is aligning. That is, the one from this side and the one from the other side is equal. So after that, I'm just going to take the curve and connect it to meet that 0.5 I came down, which I'm going to extend to where I have the allowance. Okay, then I'm going to use my marker to make this very visible from that side. Okay, so from the other side, I came up from the bust line by 1 inch. I'm actually trying to get a sweetheart neckline. Okay, so I'm just going to connect from that second dart intake from that side. I'm going to connect it there. So I realized that it's not really as deep as I want it to be, so I just came down by 0.5 inch. Okay, then I connected it again to the new point I marked. So I'll be working with the new point and not this previous one I marked earlier. Okay guys, please note that this for this work, I'm not going to be using this yoke, but if you're going to be using a yoke, you can go ahead and cut your yoke out from this point before you continue your work. Okay, you can actually trace it out on the paper first. Okay, so I took the dart intake I have on one side of that overbust, which is 0.75, and I marked it on the shoulder line, which I'm using to connect my new armhole curve. Okay, so I'll be using this new armhole curve instead of the previous one. Okay, so please ensure to trace out the yoke area on the paper. Just trace it out and then cut it out. Okay, so I'm done with this part. I'm just going to take the allowance I have on that chest line, that allowance on that chest line, I'm going to add it to the side and then connect it to the underbust. Okay, so I'm going to be using that new line now. So after that, I'm actually done with the front pattern. I'm just going to try to get that asymmetric design there, but before doing that, I'm going to come up from the chest line by 1 inch and connect it to that bust to the dart area, the area where I have my dart intake. Okay, where I mark my nipple measurements. So after this, I'm just going to open my pattern and transfer what I have on one side to the other side. So after doing this transfer, please take note, if you are using the yoke, you can go ahead and cut out the yoke or trace it out. Yeah, I think it's better you trace it out, put a paper underneath it and trace it out, then you can go ahead and cut it out. Okay, I'm just placing my ruler like this to give me a guide of where the cup for one part of the bust is going to meet, and then using that area where I marked it to connect to the armhole. Okay, so I have already used my pencil to trace out the bust area for one cup. Then from that point where I traced it, I connected it to the top where I have my shoulder to give me that asymmetric design over there. So what I'm trying to do is that I'm going to create that asymmetric design that is going to come under the bust area of one part of the bustier. Just watch what I'm doing. You can see that it's coming below the bustier where the underbust line is, and I'm going to extend it to the side like this. So I'm using these broken lines first to indicate it. So you can see I came up by 0.5 inch from the underbust line towards the side, and I extended the lines from the underbust area to meet that 0.5 inch. Okay, so after this, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a paper that I'm going to be using to trace out one part of it. Okay, so before doing that, I just went ahead to slash the lines I drew from the shoulder area. This is for me to be able to close my bust dart. So I came to the bust line as well and cut the bust line open. Please ensure that you don't cut it out entirely. Okay, just cut it gently so that you don't cut it like mine, that I mistakenly cut it out. So just cut it towards the end to reach the end, but not entirely. Okay, so after doing that, just close the bust dart and then you can secure it with a tape. Okay, you can secure it with a tape. Okay, so when you close your bust dart, you realize that your dart lines are no longer equal. So you just use your ruler to connect them. That is the bust line, rather. The bust line to the under bust is no longer equal. So you use your ruler to connect them together so that they can align. Then you take your paper, just take a paper and place it at the back. So you're going to either trace the asymmetric design or you're tracing the bustier. Okay, but what I want to do is I'm going to be tracing the bustier out first, because we're going to be cutting the bustier. I'm also going to be cutting the corset that has the asymmetric design. Okay, so please take note, if you're using your yoke, trace it out before slashing the shoulder area. Okay, but I'm not going to be using a yoke in this tutorial. So you can see I'm trying to trace out the bustier area gently. So when you're doing it, you're also going to do the same. So that area where I have my darts, I'm also going to trace it out from that part, connect them together. Do that for this side and the other side. Okay, so I'm using my ruler to extend the dart lines towards the top so that I can go ahead and slash it out from there. So I'll just go ahead and trace it out, and then after tracing it out, I'll come and make it very visible from the second paper, that is the paper where it was traced. So you see, I use my marker to make it visible so that you can see what I'm tracing very well, and you can go ahead and trace it out. So in this paper, I'm just going to mark out what I have traced out on the paper and connect them together, so you can see that is giving that shape that is there. So this is just one side because my paper is not very big. Then I took another paper and placed it towards the other side. Then I traced out the center and the other side of the paper. Okay, so after doing that, I'm going to trace it, I'm going to draw it out again following what I have traced to get that bustier that I traced out. Okay guys, to actually do this and get this right, you need to have a tracing wheel. Okay, but if you don't have a tracing wheel, I don't know if you can look for a way you can trace this out without it giving you issues, without you having difficulty. You can do that instead of drawing it another pattern again. So getting a tracing wheel will be very useful for you to achieve this. So after doing that, I'm just going to cut this bustier part out like I'm doing right now. Okay, so you can see that now I have gotten the bustier area and I'm labeling it 1 to 5, indicating center front, side front, and indicating it with arrows where I'll be knowing where they connect to each other. So I just place them on the pattern to ensure that they are equal, and of course they are. So now I can now go ahead and open the busts that I took there, placing them together so that I can be able to cut out the asymmetric design. So note, you can actually trace the asymmetric design out on a paper and then cut the bustier here directly, or you trace the bustier out and cut the asymmetric design. Whichever one you want to do is going to work fine. So now I'm just going to make that asymmetric design on the corset area to be very visible, like connecting these dots together. After connecting it, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut it out. Okay, so you can also watch me while I'm cutting it so that you also know what you're going to cut out and the part you're going to be trimming off, that is the dart area and the ones that is going to be important. Okay, so please note, if you're using a yoke, cut out your yoke first before you go ahead and cut anything out of this pattern. Okay, so at this point, if you find this tutorial very helpful, please ensure to give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, share our video, subscribe to our channel so you can always get notified when we upload new videos. So if you also have any question, please ensure to leave it in the comment section. Thank you. Okay, so when you're cutting, ensure you close your bust dart. Okay, now I'm done cutting it. I'm just going to go and label it: center front, side front 1, side front 2, indicating arrows where they are and numbering it from 1 to 5. Now for the back pattern, I just went ahead to draw my chest line, my bust point, waistline, corset length and hip, because I'm not going to be using a yoke. But if you're going to be using a yoke, please draw the pattern from the shoulder down to the hip. Okay, follow the same process, but I'm not using a yoke. That's why I'm doing this. And my shoulder to waist for the back is 14.5. Okay, so ensure to do that. Then I came down from there by 5 inches to get my corset length, and the waist to hip is 8 inches. Okay, so I'm marking my bust dart of 3.5 inches. I'm marking it on the chest line down to the hip line, and I'm connecting it with the straight line. Okay, so after connecting it, I came to the waist area and marked 0.5 inch on both sides, and I'm connecting it to meet the chest line at the top, and also connecting it to meet the hip line at the down, the lower part. Okay, so now I'm going to mark my body measurements, dividing them by 4. A bust measurement divided by 4, I'm marking it on the chest line, adding the 1 inch allowance. I did the same for the waist, dividing by 4, and I'm adding 1 inch allowance plus the bust plus the dart intake we took there of 1 inch. I'm adding there. Okay, so my bust measurement, I'm using 33 inches. My waist measurement, I'm using 26 inches rather. Then for the on the bust, I used 28 inches. So now I want to also take another dart from the waist area. I took the midpoint which I have from that dart to the side of the waist. I marked the midpoint, connected with a straight line. Then I took 0.25 inch on both sides. So now this 0.25 inch is me trying to tighten the waist. Okay, I'm trying to reduce the waist by 1 inch, and I'm not going to be adding that allowance to the waist because I'm going to be taking it off from the waist, reducing it by 1 inch. Okay, so I took the side of the front because I'm trying to get the armhole which I have on that side. So I'm just going to trace the lines where I have the waist, place it there, ensure you mark the waistline, then place it properly like this and connect the armhole through that point. That is for me to get my armhole. But if you're working with a pattern that you want to draw the yoke, you already get your armhole curve from the shoulder to the armhole area. Okay, I only use this because I did not use the shoulder measurement for this. So after connecting them, I came to the chest line from the side, from the center, came down by 0.75, and I connected it to meet the armhole. Okay, so from that new line, I marked 2.5 inches at the top there, and on the corset length, I marked 1.5 inches, and I'm connecting them together like this. This is the part where I'll be taking off because I'll be putting a lacing at that area. Okay, you can see I'm indicating the areas where I'll be having the lacing, and that's where the opening is going to be for the corset. Then from the chest line, I came up by 1 inch from the side below, that is that corset length area. I came up by 1 inch and connected it to meet the dart. So after this, I'm just going to go ahead and cut it out. Okay, so after cutting it out, I'll slash the darts open like this so I can have 2 pieces of this. Then I'll go ahead and label it center back, side back 1, and side back 2, indicating arrows where they are going to be meeting. So at this point, you are done with this tutorial. If you find this tutorial very helpful, please ensure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel. So because this tutorial is very long, I'm not going to be showing the sewing aspect, but in my next video, we're going to be learning how to go about the sewing aspect of this dress. Thank you for watching. See you guys in my next video.